Alright, so wanted to get back on schedule and look at these writings that y'all did last week. So first off, I'm going to start with Mr. Daly. So the way we're going to proceed is on this first one, I'm going to look at on the first paragraph. So we'll look at how you put together the paragraph and the thesis. And the next one we'll look together how that first body paragraph's going forward, and we'll probably have a Frankenstein quote in there. The last one I'm going to look for how using the critical sources that I should use. Okay, so on this one, we open up and look at it, and we see there's a bunch of white space that we want not to be there. Okay, so first off, anytime you see this much space, you know things are going amiss. People are going to consider that as padding the paper, having all this extra white space in there. So let's get that out of there. Now then, you can see in here there is the spacing that's going on in here, and there's extra spacing in between each time he's hitting return. Word, Microsoft Word defaults and puts a little extra space in there. So let's get that out so this thing looks correct. So we're going here and we're going to spacing before and after. We're going to knock that down. Instead of 10, we're going to put it down to 0. And it's going to tighten everything up. And this is the way the paper ought to look. If you can remember that, it looks great, quite a bit different from where we were a second ago. More than that, I want to show he had quite a bit more earlier, but now we've come back and things are going to be messed up. So anyway, I want you to make sure that you are doing everything you need to do so that you have a paper that looks right. Again, if it looks right, people assume it is right. All right, let's look at this first paragraph here. I'm not going to read it here, but we're going to look through here. We're going to look to see if we can find the thesis. Thesis ought to be occurring somewhere down here. And the problem I think we see is that it's not real clear what his thesis is. He's talking about hubris, worst of times, thought of Frankenstein, Victor sets out to rid of man of disease, blind ambition, regardless of the evidence. Rampage, we see him pervert the evil. It looks to me like this really wants to be the thesis. I think maybe he thinks this one is the thesis. But either way, we don't have a really clear thesis, and that's going to be a weakness in what he's trying to get to. If I were Mr. Daly, I would put these two things together. And remember, for a good thesis, we want a topic, we want an argument, and we want a reason. And the problem I think we have right now is that I'm not clear on what's what there. Regardless of the evidence, well, that sounds much more on the reason side. Destruction of his own monster, okay. But what's the argument? It could be that he convinces himself of his own priorities, but that's not really clear enough. Through this rampage, we see him. This could be he perverts the evil of his action, and instead, Victor Frankenstein greatly misunderstands his action and saving. That's why I think this is what he wants to be the thesis, but I don't think the topic is clear enough that he wants to talk about. The argument may be, and this may be where he's headed for reason, but I would say we want that vastly clarified, not only for us, the reader, but for the writer to know what it is he's trying to accomplish. Alright, so there's that one. Good. Well, we'll take a look at another one. Alright, on this one, we're gonna skip ahead, and we're not gonna look at the introduction. We're going to look for the paragraph. Now, yes, hypothetically, to know if this paragraph is any good, we would have to know what the thesis is. But, or rather, let's say this: to know if the paragraph is doing what it ought to do, which is prove the thesis, we'd have to know what the thesis is. However, if the paragraph is any good on its own merits, it should be able to stand without the thesis. Alright, so let's look at this paragraph, and here's the problem you see right away. And this won't be the only person that does this. This is Kimberly Della Rosa, and we're not going to correct the same stuff we corrected a second ago. But I want you to look at this paragraph. Here it is on half a page here. We're on the next page here. Page, 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 page. So this paragraph's a page and a half. I'm going to submit to you that inside of a page and a half paragraph, you probably don't have control over the paragraph any longer. How do we know? Well, take a look at where she starts here. Since the beginning, Victor didn't understand the demon he had created because it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. The outcome he pictured him beautiful. Okay, so based on that, it sounds like this is going to be about beauty and about how the thing looks. But it doesn't take long before, well, we can just jump down to the quote. Jump down to the quote, we see Justine, she was arrested and alive. That really doesn't have anything to do with beauty. And so somewhere in between here, this person moved from the idea of the beautiful all the way down to Justine. And now we're going to have another quote in here, so a second quote inside the paragraph. Then we're going to have a third quote inside the paragraph, and I'm going to tell you that's too many quotes. Paragraphs are usually only good at holding up about one quote. So I'm going to suggest to you only one quote per paragraph, and fully develop that quote and fully develop the point. The problem is with this paragraph, as we just saw that little instance, the paragraph is moving. What it is that the person started off with is not where they are now. Take a look at the next quote. His tale and his feelings now expressed proves to be the creature of fine sensations. Okay, well, we'll move from Justine quote to this quote. What's the intervening information that would make that all make sense? Well, it almost looks like instead of having a clear point for the paragraph is moving through kind of a chronology of events. Instead of having a real clear idea of what wants to be proved, it's moving through a chronology of events instead of having some point that it's trying to prove. However, I want to look at the bottom, because lots of times when students do that, you can find what they really want to talk about at the bottom. But if we look, here it is, Victor ended up not making a female companion. Well, that doesn't seem to be where we want to be. And attention, loved by someone made it upset. Oh yeah, here's the whole sentence. His attention wants to be loved by someone made him upset. That could be the whole idea. This could be the whole idea. But if we look back, where we started with beauty, now we're on evil, and there has to be some kind of connective material to make that all make sense. Inside of one paragraph, it's going to be hard to move from those two very extreme ideas to this. Is the paragraph about Victor, or is it about the monster? It seems like it's about Victor here. Victor. Victor. But when we get down here, it's much more about what the monster wants. The monster. And so I would tell you that paragraph doesn't seem to be focused enough to be able to do the job of proving something. Okay, so remember, one quote per paragraph, and then fully develop that paragraph. I'm going to talk to you pretty soon about how to develop the paragraph, but I want to have some, probably this week or next week, I'll probably mention that. Alright, so okay, but it's on, I think it's in that, if you go look at my thesis model, it's probably, if you go look in the file section, there's probably the thesis model or paragraph model in there too. I just haven't gone over it yet. Alright, so there's that one. Just the paragraph probably has a really good amount of information in it, too much for one paragraph to do. Remember, these paragraphs are not pack mules. They're just kind of, you know, they can handle about one thing. Alright, let's go look at another one, the last one. In this one, I want to specifically look for the critical material that I told y'all to use from the last one, from the stuff we read from the readings from last week, which was in the back part of the book, which is why I requested the book that I did for y'all, because I knew I was going to be using that material. Alright, again, we're not going to focus on this first paragraph. We're going to look through here and see if we can find, real quick, that quote. This quote, when I looked around, I saw and heard, none will like me. Okay, that must be the monster. Here's Victor, let him live with me in interchange of, instead of injury, I would bestow every benefit. Yes, yes. Okay, so the reason I chose this one is because this person is trying to, you're misunderstanding the material that I'm asking for. When I say use the critical material, I didn't say use the textbook, I said use the critical material. This stuff, the one, I mean, this person is really clearly articulating, they're looking at chapter 5 in the textbook. But that's not the right material to use. The material I want you to use is the stuff out of last week's secondary sources, such as this. There was an article by Chris Baldick in the back of the book, in the back of the Frankenstein book. That's the material you should be using to make these things. That's the critical material. This is trying to tell me something about the textbook. Yes, I do want y'all to interpret, and I was trying to frame this in terms of interpretation, but not using something from the textbook, but something from the actual secondary material back there. All right. One other thing back here, I want to go over the works cited page. That material is not needed. You can see this person is, all this stuff is centered. None of this should be centered. The title should be centered, but it should be left aligned. So Mary Shelley Frankenstein, editor, yes. So we have the second edition first, and we put that like this. And then we don't need the WW because Norton's a well-known publisher. Okay, and we only need 1 year, and it's going to be the year of the one that you're using. We don't need those page numbers right there because the page numbers should be in the citation. I didn't bring that up here, but we're not seeing citations, and that's going to be a problem. Here in the next couple of weeks, I'll be taking off for that on your long essays. And there is some debate whether this information is needed, but I think we can survive without it. The Russenwasser, this is not the right one, so we're not going to worry about that. I will show you. See how this one goes over 2 lines? To do a correct works cited, if it goes over 2 lines, you have to frame it like this. You go in here and do special, and go down to hanging. Oh, look at there, it didn't do it. And that should kick over, but it didn't. So maybe the paragraph's not formatted right to start with. All right, so let's see if I can make this thing do what it needs to do. Nah, I'm not going to be able to. It looks like something is wonky in the format. Well, I put it up in the announcements, so hopefully we'll be able to fix it there. You'll be able to see it there. All right, I think that's good. All right, even shorter than last time. All right, good. Thanks. Bye.